Welcome back to the Next Brave Step podcast. I'm your host, Chelsy Weisz, and today we're diving into something truly special. This is my signature coaching method called the Next Brave Step Blueprint, your guide to transformational change. Now, this blueprint isn't just a set of ideas or theories, it's an actual proven system that has worked for hundreds of people around the world. So, whether you're feeling stuck in your job, struggling with finances, or maybe you're yearning for better health, or maybe seeking a more fulfilling relationship, this blueprint is designed to guide you through this transformational journey step by step. So, what exactly is the Next Brave Step Blueprint? This blueprint is this comprehensive actionable plan that helps you navigate those significant changes. And it's broken down into 6 key stages. So over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be walking through what exactly happens in each of these stages. And right now, I'll go ahead and give you an overview of each of those. So the first stage is what I like to call the reckoning. And this is where you kind of recognize the need for change and confronting the reality of your current situation. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Next week, we're going to be talking about the evaluation stage. And this is where you're really assessing what's working and what's not working. After that, we move on to what's called the strategize or strategy stage. And this is where you really develop that clear and actionable plan to achieve your goals. The next stage is the big one, and it is massive action. And this is where you really take that next brave step. This is where you start implementing your plan with bold, decisive action. All right, so it doesn't just end there. Next, we have course correct. You're going to have some things that you're going to need to adjust as you go. And this course correct stage is where you start to do that. Finally, we have the receive and repeat. And this is where you really embrace your achievements and prepare for continuous growth. So throughout the series, we're going to be diving through each one of these stages in detail. And like I said, we're starting today with the reckoning. I'm going to share some insights, some personal stories, as well as some practical tips to help you recognize when it's time for change and how to embrace that pivotal moment in your life. So if you're ready to take control of your life, start your journey towards a transformational change, then go ahead and stay tuned. Remember that each brave step you take brings you closer to the life that you've always dreamed of. So let's get started with the next brave step.
Hello, and welcome to the Next Brave Step podcast, the podcast that's all about turning dreams into action. I'm your host, Chelsy Weisz. Now, this podcast is more than just something to listen to while you fold laundry. Instead, imagine I'm inviting you to join me in my kitchen, a space for genuine and transformative conversations. Here, with the sunlight streaming through the windows, margaritas and homemade guac on the table, we're ready to dive into stories and strategies that don't just inspire you to think about a better life, but give you the tools, motivations to go out there and make it happen. So pull up a chair, let's talk like old friends, and together we'll navigate the journey from turning dreaming into doing, one brave step at a time. Your adventure towards making your dreams a reality starts right here.
All right, guys, welcome to the reckoning. This for sure is a stage that can sometimes take the longest and sometimes is the shortest. It really just depends on how much you really want to change. And this is where you start to make that decision. So for me, I have found myself in this stage over and over and over again in so many different areas of my life. So one of, I would say, the most pivotal reckoning stages for me was before I got divorced. And this is where I literally just woke up one day and realized that I just didn't want to be treated the way I was being treated. Now, my previous marriage, from the outside, it looked very beautiful. It looked romanticized, right? We had 2 kids. We lived in the farmhouse. I had a beautiful cut flower garden. My photography business was doing well. And from the outside, it looked great. But the behind closed doors was a different story. Now, it was never physically abusive, but there was a lot of emotional abuse that was going on behind closed doors. And we just weren't really connected on a lot of different levels. And my previous husband, he's a great father and very involved in my kids' lives, but we as a couple we didn't really work out. And there came a time where I was spending a lot of time journaling and assessing like what did my life look like. And this process, if I'm being really honest, it took quite a few years to get to this point, right? And I know the exact moment that I realized that if I was going to want anything different, it was going to be a divorce. And that was actually 3 years before we actually got divorced or even started talking about divorce. And it was a time when I sat down and I wrote out what I wanted out of a romantic relationship. And I, you know, wrote on a piece of paper all of these things that I wanted. And the on the back side of the relationship, I wrote out everything that I needed to be in order to have a partner who had those same values, who showed up in the way that I wanted them to show up. So it wasn't just a like, you have to do this and I'm going to be, you know, a passenger princess or whatever. It was, I had to show up as well. And I remember writing that piece of paper. It was one page, there was a front and a back. And I got done with it. And I realized that if I truly wanted that relationship, it wasn't going to be with my current partner. And I got mad. I got really mad that I was in, that's what life was going to be. Because at that point, divorce didn't seem like an option because I was so worried about what other people thought on the outside. We were camping that weekend and I had gotten up super early in the morning and had journaled, and I ended up going on a walk, and I think I ended up walking like 6.5 miles, like power walking, pissed off in the rain. And I ended up tweaking my ankle pretty bad. And it ended up being this constant reminder of you're going to have to do something. And I didn't do anything for years. Just swept it under the rug. My previous husband had a lot of health issues. So we had a lot of, things that we were dealing with in the middle of all of that. And when I finally came back to this reckoning stage right after Christmas in 2021, I just sat down and realized that I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with modeling this type of relationship for my family, for my kids. I wanted my daughter to have a better relationship modeled for her. And if I wanted to do that, then I was going to have to break this generational cycle that was happening on both sides of her family. And, we went to marriage counseling for months. The purpose of this reckoning stage, to kind of explain it to you guys, it's in hopes that it doesn't take years for you to go through it, because it can be very transformational and very empowering, but it's tough, it's hard, and it's really a crucial stage for personal growth and personal development, whether it is wanting a new relationship, whether it is, or not even a new relationship, maybe a different relationship of like you're molding the current relationship that you're in, whether it's your finances, whether it is your job, any of those things can and will be changed by going through this entire system. But it all starts with the reckoning. So what does it mean to have a reckoning? It's honestly this like pivotal moment that you have to face in an unpleasant situation. And you've probably been avoiding it, and often with significant consequences. This can be with a job, whether with a boss that, has not put you up for promotion, or maybe you just hate sitting at a 9 to 5, twiddling your thumbs, watching the clock tick by. when you would way rather have your own business, right? Now, there are a lot of emotions that you will experience during this stage, and it's going to be filled with frustration and unease and fear. And this reckoning stage can be triggered by major life events. So, maybe you do get laid off and you have to decide, are you going to go back to a 9 to 5 and apply for other jobs? Or are you going to start that business that you have always wanted? And, getting laid off or getting fired was that trigger that has brought you to this decision point, to this tipping point. And really all this reckoning stage is this build up to this tipping point where you make a decision on if you're going to do something to change your situation or if you're not going to do something. And if you don't do something, that's still a decision that you're making. You're putting out into the universe that you are okay with the current situation. You are okay with what it is that you are being dealt. And so you're going to feel this like buildup of dis-ease, of unsatisfaction, of like wanting to change. And it's very easy to just avoid it because we don't want to deal with those feelings, right? But there is a crucial point of this stage, and that's what I call the pinpointing the problem. It is where you actually have to pinpoint what the problem is that you need to address. And this really requires a level of honesty with yourself. It can be challenging, especially when you're dealing with other people or there's a lot of shame about what it is. Maybe you have been living paycheck to paycheck and you have a lot of debt and you don't want to live that way, but you've gotten yourself into that current situation. Pinpointing the problem is where you have to clearly define what it is that you want to change. And you can either say this out loud, you can write it down, you can discuss it with someone that you trust, but naming that problem specifically gives you a target to focus on and sets the stage for those actionable steps forward to change. So the reckoning stage is this like buildup of anticipation, of fear, of unease, of wanting something to change. And if you're listening to this podcast, my guess is that you have felt that before. And it is frustrating sometimes because when you get into personal development or into growth or owning a business, this isn't something that you just go through once. It's something that happens over and over and over again. And that can be really frustrating because you can find yourself crying on your bathroom shower floor multiple times a year, feeling like, why am I always feeling this way? And it might be for different problems, but honestly, it's a good thing because when you get to this point, it means that you are getting ready to up-level your life in some way. So get comfortable with feeling this way. Get excited about feeling this way because it means that you are upgrading your life. It means that you are to a point where you want something to change and it's okay. Now, once you have pinpointed that problem and you've clearly defined it, you have the power of choice. Now, in every situation, in every area of your life, you have the power to choose. It might not be choices that you necessarily love, but there's always an option. And when you decide to not deal or not make a decision or not move forward on whatever this reckoning problem is, that is still a decision. Inaction is still a decision. And I want to really encourage you to reflect on whether or not the discomfort that you feel is greater than the effort that it's going to require to make a change. Because until that discomfort is so uncomfortable that you are going to do or have or say or have the conversation that is required in order to make a change, until that is bigger than the actions it's going to take, you're probably not going to actually take action on it. So you have the power to choose your own path. You have the power to improve your situation. Now, oftentimes, if we're not making that decision to move forward with it, we will start to avoid things. So how do we recognize that we're avoiding making this decision? Oftentimes, you're going to have your fight, flight, or freeze response come up. Those are natural responses. So either you're going to get mad at your partner or your kids and you're constantly, pissed off and angry, or you are, running from your problems. My mom was really good at running from her problems. And so often we would take off in the middle of the night and drive up to my grandma's house and stay up there for a couple weeks. And that is something that, I've had to recognize was modeled for me, and that sometimes I am really good at doing as well, and actively combat it, because my first response to problems often is to ignore them, is to leave, is to not open the mail, is to not open the email, is to not answer the phone, is to not have the conversation. Now, there's also a freeze response where we just do absolutely nothing. We're not fighting against it. We're not running away from it, but we're also not dealing with it either. And this can look like scrolling social media or focusing on less important tasks like cleaning your house or disassembling your KitchenAid mixer that you want to start cleaning. Or maybe it's even, picking up new hobbies or focusing on different areas of your business instead of really, taking action on things that are going to be money making. So why do we avoid this decision, whether it's, actually just pinpointing what it is or starting to take steps towards it? And honestly, it really boils down to fear. It is the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, or it is the fear of failure and its consequences of what if we do go all in and it doesn't work out and I give it my 110%. I know that I gave it my 110% and it doesn't work. That's something that I struggle with like a lot, is thinking, okay, if I don't give it 110%, if I only give it 90%, then I know that 10% that I held back, it probably would have made me over the finish line. And instead of pushing all the way through and risking that it might not work out, it saves my ego, right? It lets my ego be like, well, I probably could have done it if I had tried harder. I knew that I had more gas in the tank and I didn't go all the way in, right? And that just keeps you back in the same stage, right? So here are some questions for you to, or a question, I guess, for you to really think about. So what is the one thing that you have been avoiding that you know that you need to face, right? Maybe it's credit card debt. Maybe it is, starting a new business. Maybe it's scaling your business or starting to outsource things in your business so that you can, truly enjoy it or make more money or have more time, right? What is it that you have been avoiding that you need to face? Now, once you kind of pinpoint what it is what the problem is, and you've said it out loud, you've written it down, you've talked about it with somebody else, you almost need to get to this like pissed off stage, right? And that is really what starts to ignite that fire for change. And it is so empowering to get to that stage, right? For me anyways. Now I have to get to like this like pissed off. I don't like where I'm at. I need to make a decision. I need to move. I need to do something. Sometimes that means I end up getting up in the middle of the night and working on stuff, putting things into action and like dropping everything else around me in order to move forward in whatever it is that I am moving forward in. So you can it's good to get a little bit angry at this stage, angry at the situation, angry at, what has held you back, that you've held yourself back. And that little bit of anger is good because it really does ignite this fire for change. The decision point, that is the moment where you decide if you are going to harness this inner belief, this inner self-worth, and move forward. That's this tipping point. Are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? Are you going to take accountability for yourself, for your situation, and improve it? Or are you going to stay in this cycle of running from it, from hiding from it, of ignoring it? Because that's what it really boils down to. You're going to do one of those two things, right? What I want you to do after listening to this episode is I want you to get out a piece of paper and I want you to journal about what it is that brought you to this episode today. What is it that you are facing? I want you to write it out, pinpoint that exact problem, that thing that you want to change. And I want you to identify it. You know deep down whether or not you need to do this or not. Maybe you are just, subscribed and you're not at a point where you're at a reckoning stage, and that's okay. But if you were drawn to this specific episode, there's a reason. You want more, you want different, you want better, and you deserve it. You deserve to have the life it is that you want. You have at your fingertips the ability to make whatever you want of this life. And sometimes that means making tough decisions and having important conversations and holding ourselves accountable. It's not easy. It's going to be hard, but you are worth doing the work it takes to create the life that you want. And right now is the time to do it. Because if you don't, you are saying to the world that you are okay with where you're at. You are okay with the way you're being treated. You are okay with the current situation of your finances. You are okay with going to a 9-to-5 job and clocking in and clocking out and doing something that maybe you don't love, or maybe it's something that you don't feel good about. By not doing this exercise, by not pinpointing the thing that you want to change, you are saying that you're okay with that. But I know you. I know that you deserve more, that you are capable of living this full, beautiful life to become as rich as you want, to become as wealthy as you want, to build generational wealth, to have as much time as you want to spend with your family or your loved ones, to be able to travel wherever you want. You deserve that. You deserve to achieve those goals, to achieve those dreams. You deserve to have the social media growth that you want. You deserve all of it. And I'm here to help you along the way. Now, this reckoning stage, it's a cycle. It's ongoing. But it's an opportunity for you to grow. It is an opportunity for you to transform your life rather than accept setbacks. And I'm so excited for you to be a part of this. So get comfortable with the discomfort. It's going to be a natural part of growth. There is so much power in confronting our fears and our uncertainties head on. And this stage, while it's challenging, it can lead to significant personal development and empowerment. And I am so excited for you. So grab that piece of paper, open up that notes app on your phone, and start writing. What is it that deep down you know needs to change? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your health and wellness. Whatever it is, I want you to write it down and I want you to pinpoint the problem. Now, next week, we are going to be talking about the evaluation stage. And that is where we really evaluate what it is that's working, where you're at right now, where it is that you want to go, and start to build out that plan of how to get to where it is that you want. But today is the reckoning. Today is where you sit down and get very clear about what the problem is, because so often we can just have this feeling of unease, of uncertainty, of fear. And instead of leaning into it to really pinpoint what it is that we want to change, we avoid it. We retract. We move away from it. And we don't ever do anything to change. And we find ourselves in the same relationships, with the same job, with the same income, with the same amount of time. And I don't want that for you. I want you to live the life that you were born to live, because you were truly born in order to bring something special to the people around you, to this world. And until you make those changes, you are never going to live fully into who it is that you were meant to be. So grab that piece of paper, start writing down, and tune in next week as we get into the evaluation stage. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I will see you next week.
That wraps up today's episode of The Next Brave Step. I've truly enjoyed having you join me on this journey. Here at The Next Brave Step, we don't just talk about our dreams, we take bold actions towards them every day. Stay connected by hitting that subscribe button and dive even deeper with us by becoming part of the Next Brave Step Insiders group on Facebook. Let the insights and energy from today's conversation ignite your next brave step forward. Remember, every small step is a vital part of your incredible journey. So get out there and take that next step forward. You're never alone. I'll be right here cheering you on. I'll see you in the next episode.